The following name, image, and likeness segment is sponsored by Houston alum Juan Miranda. You can find him on Twitter at Texas Juan. Once again, on Twitter, Houston alum, and he is the sponsor of this name, image, and likeness segment. Joining me for one of many throughout the fall, heading into the meat and bones of the football season, and this will actually go into early of the basketball season. So, Mike, thank you for taking the time out of your day to speak with me. Obviously, you are with Start Pizza. Mike, how you doing?
Very good.
Good. So, like I mentioned at the top, we're going to be speaking about name, image, and likeness. And obviously, of course, when it comes to you, Mike Pittman, you are you are the co-owner, correct, of the Hoop and Holler micro collective for UH basketball and football fans, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. So obviously these segments are going to be kind of focusing on NIL in Houston and across the college world, something that has changed since the summer of 2021. But I want to start to get your story behind this perspective. Hoop and Holler. I think many of UH fans know you guys more best for the Star Pizza commercials that we've run them on That's Rich Cubes. They've been phenomenal. But before we get into that, I kind of want to get into the story behind where did the idea for Hoop and Holler start?
Sure. So my wife Jennifer and I, really last season through the basketball season were a little bit aware of where the NIL landscape was going, what other schools were doing, and U of H being Houston being such a big city, and U of H being what it is as far as fan base goes. There's a lot of fan participation in sports, but not always. It didn't seem like there was a whole lot of participation outside of the actual sporting event, which is something that we saw in other cities and hope to see more of in Houston. So in the end of last basketball season, we really looked at kind of the landscape in Houston versus the landscape outside of Houston. And without sort of raising a flag and saying, somebody do something. We saw how other schools were going out, and Florida State had some big stuff. SMU had some big things happening. There were big stuff happening at USC. And I didn't really have the time ourselves to really run a new business that would be big enough to be considered a huge NIL. So we decided we would kind of start something small, and let's see. With the restaurant, we kind of already had a built-in client that I felt like we had a platform that people might pay attention to, and we're kind of fortunate that they did. And running it up that way really worked best for us because it gave us an opportunity to learn as we went and test the waters and kind of throw something, like you said, together on a weekend. Make it a legal entity and kind of go from there. And that was really where we started. And then once we had it, we weren't quite sure what to do with it. Mm-hmm. So it was, let's just shoot for the moon. So we had put Marcus Sasser on our sign at Star Pizza, and he responded to that, which was kind of a shock. And we thought that was pretty funny. And then we realized, if he's responding to that, maybe he would respond to doing an NIL thing. And then that's kind of how the snowball started rolling downhill.
Mm-hmm. And just to take a step back, can you talk a little bit about what all the legal process was so Hoop and Holler could become, like you said, a legal entity, and what was that like? What was the paperwork that you guys had to fill out?
Really very
what was that process like?
It was simple. It's as much as, if we were going to go out and do something, we didn't want it to be a joke or that's not a real thing. It's a legal entity, and it gave us the opportunity and a platform to scale it however we really wanted. We didn't really have an interest in doing the nonprofit route. That's a whole different beast that we weren't quite ready to tackle. But it gave us the opportunity to put some of our own funds behind something, and the restaurant participated a little bit, and go out and create. We like to create and have fun with things and be goofy with it, because these guys, they're serious on the court and on the field. They don't need to be serious when they're coming out and playing around with pizza. It's pizza.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the name Hoop and Holler, where did that come from? Where did you guys come up with it?
Well, sometimes I've read that you come up with some of your best ideas or most fun ideas when you're really not thinking about anything. And when we started talking about what to name, well, okay, we're going to do this thing. What are we going to name it? I didn't really know the direction we wanted to go. We were at first more focused with basketball, with sort of in the future, maybe get into the football a little bit and some other sports. So trying to come up with something that had basketball like hoop in it and also celebration, the term Hoop and Holler kind of just hit me. And when I said it, my wife didn't say no right away, so I knew that I might have a winner.
Were there any difficulties that you guys faced when launching it, or was it just much more of a straightforward process, like you mentioned, just being able to fill out all the paperwork that was necessary to become
that was really the big thing to me, was if I can do it on the weekend and maybe a little bit on Monday, then a lot of people should be able to pull off something like we did. And that was sort of the idea moving forward with doing some of the Star Pizza commercials and some of the name, image, and likeness relationships that we created, was to really show that it's not easy, but it's doable. And a lot of people can do it. You don't have to be Tillman Fertitta or a millionaire to go do an NIL deal. And you don't have to give away a Lamborghini for the weekend. You can do something smaller. We're a small mom and pop restaurant, and we like to think we're an institution in Houston, but we're only as good as our last pizza. So throwing that stuff out there was something different for us. We don't advertise, so this was a whole new thing, and it was more of a building a relationship than we looked at it that way more than we looked at it like advertising.
And like you said, building that relationship was probably the most crucial thing for you guys, just to be able to get off the ground and get a lot more eyeballs around, like you mentioned, your guys' restaurant, but also Hoop and Holler as a whole. You mentioned that you guys reached out to Sasser. I believe you said it was on social media, correct?
We did.
And you guys were surprised when he reached out, or when he got back to you guys. Was it just like, hey, let's see, what was that process like? What was the thinking behind, hey, let's just reach out to him and see where it goes from there?
Well, when we first put Marcus on our sign, we have a big Las Vegas style LED sign on Washington Avenue at our Star Pizza over there. And when we put his picture on there, I had sort of jokingly put please don't leave, Marcus, or please stay kind of picture. And a couple of people saw it that I'd showed it to before I put it up there, and they said, I don't know. And I said, I'm going to do it anyway, just see if I get any response. And we took a picture of the sign and put it on our social media at the restaurant, and it got a lot of traction. And people thought at that point that we had an NIL deal with Marcus. And really, to me, it was just hoping that he was going to stay, and sort of showing that we're part of the fan base and this is going to be fun. Let's make some fun of it. So we didn't really know where to go with it from there. But at that point, I felt like I also owed it to Marcus to do an NIL deal, not knowing if he would say yes or no. But he said yes right away, so we went with it.
And what was that, once you guys had that agreement with Sasser that you were going to work out some NIL type of deal, what was being able to get the specifics of like those agreements and those? I'd imagine, was it a negotiation, or what was that conversation like?
Sure. So we kept it simple enough, and we didn't ask for much, because I knew that we weren't going to have to take out a loan to go do this. This was something I needed to keep simple. And I hadn't quite learned to do one at a time yet. And since I thought Marcus would say no, I had reached out to Tremont Mark at the same time. They both said yes. So then I couldn't tell one of them, we'll do something later. So I wasn't quite sure what to do with both of them at the same time, but we wound up getting them together at the same time, and that worked out great. So negotiation wise, it was, I tried to make it, I really did look and do some research into what are other schools doing, what are other athletes asking for, before I went and made our initial pitch. So wasn't through the roof, and it was, like I said, not something we had to go take out a loan for. But these to me, were some of the biggest players in the game today. So it meant a lot for them to want to have a relationship with a restaurant. That was a big deal to me.
Well, Mike, I think you're a professional at this because you just read one of the bullet points that I had prepared for the show in terms of getting inspiration from what some of other places were doing at other schools. Was there one in particular that you kind of maybe that stuck out to you and you were able to use a lot for inspiration, or what was that process like?
Well, there was. I like a lot of sports. I like a lot of teams. I follow a lot of the teaching and things that Nick Saban does. There's nothing wrong with him being a successful coach. So I looked at what some of his players were asking for and what they were doing and deals they were doing. And I figured in the marketplace, that's probably pretty high end. And so we went around that number and kind of started there. And I figured if they said no, then I probably couldn't afford it, but they didn't say no. So that worked out okay. So that was sort of the basis of my research, was to go with some of the number one ranked teams. What are they asking for? What kind of things are they doing? And follow that lead a little bit.
Gotcha. And just in terms of going back again to the negotiations, was that like an actual contract that you guys have to sign, or what is that like?
Yes, there is. There was initially, we started with our own proprietary contract, just a few pages. And it was something that I'd really found on the internet and changed it around to fit exactly what we were doing, to be more personal for each of the athletes. And then as we moved forward, we realized that we could do a lot of that through open doors. And that was a game changer for me, because it made it super simple. The awkward, let's go sit down and sign some paperwork, completely went away. Everything was done online, and it was click this, send that offer. It's accepted. It's done. When can we get together?
Gotcha. Well, Mike, I'm about to let you go for the first segment. So is there anything else that you'd like to add just in terms of the whole process of being able to launch it? Was there any details that you would like to add, and something maybe that if someone else is looking to start a collective, they should know about? If you could go back and give yourself advice, we'll phrase it that way. If you could go back, give yourself advice when you were beginning to launch a Hoop and Holler, what would it be?
The experience is the key. Look at doing things that you think are fun, that you would want to do. And that was really, once we learned how to own the experience, it really was a lot more fun. Some of the stuff like we did with D.A. Jones and with Hawk from the equipment team, those were things that were just like, let's just go be silly and let's make it fun and find a way to also spend some time with these athletes. And that really became a big part of the whole experience, was the experience and getting to hang out with these guys and talk not sports with them and a lot of other stuff. But the experience and the relationship became a lot more important in the end than what's the return on investment.
Mm-hmm. That's going to do it for the first of a series segment. It'll be the first of 3 episodes on Pawd Slama Jama that we are debuting once again, that is sponsored by Juan Miranda at Texas Juan on Twitter. Be sure to follow him. Thank you again, Mike Pittman, for joining me on first of 3 Star Pizza, Hoop and Holler. Be sure to follow them on Twitter, and we'll see you next time next week. You don't want to miss it. The first of 3 series.
Go Cougs.